Namaskara and welcome to BIC Talks, a podcast by Bangalore International Centre.
Hi, I'm Pawan Srinath and welcome to the 102nd episode of BIC Talks. This episode is a little different and I'll be speaking with my colleague at BIC, Lekha Naidu. Hi Lekha, welcome to BIC Talks.
Hi Pawan, welcome to BIC Talks.
This welcome is a little different, isn't it?
It is, and I think you should be telling us why this is happening so differently.
It's been a wonderful year and 100 plus episodes of BIC Talks, and it's with a heavy heart that I have to say that I'll be moving on from the show and I'll be moving on to do a few different things. So Lekha, I'm welcoming you not just on this episode, but to take over the reins of BIC Talks and be the host and the anchor of this show going forward.
Well, I have to say that a daunting responsibility to take over, Pawan, from you, especially since the BIC Talks has over the year garnered such a following and has been such a great support to several people who have latched on to BIC Talks as a form of information, entertainment, and just sort of keeping sane during this past year.
Yeah, I'm glad I could be a part of that and help BIC started because Bangalore International Centre has been around for a while and we are today back at the Bangalore International Centre main auditorium to record this conversation. And I remember doing this just a little over a year ago, I think.
It will be 1 year in 5 days, exactly a year ago.
So we did our first recording of sort of the 0th episode of BIC Talks. I think the day between the India-wide Bandh and the actual start of the lockdown. I think my first conversation with Ravi on this podcast was on the day of that Bandh. And I'm glad we managed to sneak into the auditorium on that one day, which was still open. We were still very distant. I remember just like today, we were sitting, I think about 15-20 feet apart from each other, spread out across the stage and sort of talking about why a podcast, what will BIC do, what will this be about. And for me, it was a privilege because well before this wonderful space existed in Domlur and BIC was still operating out of the previous premises in the auditorium, I've been attending talks by BIC for at least 5 years, 6 years, for quite a while. So it was great to, actually help BIC start a few new things, especially after that amazing year that BIC had, right? After you opened in the new premises and there were 200 plus programs, mad set of programs in that 1 year leading up to the lockdown. So I think it was quite an experience. And Lekha, you've been in the thick of it on all the other things as well, right? So BIC Talks has just been one arm of everything that BIC has been up to since the lockdown. But do you have a tab of how many live streams have happened and how many events?
Yes, we do. The live streams since last March we're almost touching 300 now. And this is the 102nd podcast episode. So that gives you an idea of how thickly in the thick of things we've been. Harking back to that day when we recorded episode 0 and those questions that we were sort of grappling with, like how relevant will this podcast be? Why should we have one? Why should we go down this path? I think all those questions have been answered and several times over. And you have been the one driving it through the year. And how would you characterize the experience of you doing this with this particular podcast, with your wider experience of handling other podcasts in other languages, which are not as diverse as BIC Talks is?
I've been podcasting since about April 2017, right? So that's almost 4 years now, a little less than 4 years. But to me, starting this with BIC was quite unique and challenging for at least 3-4 different reasons. One, we wanted to launch and run this without breaks during the lockdown, entirely with recording at home, social distancing, and so on. So that was a massive challenge, because before then, you always have a comfort, right? When you can see your guest, when you can talk to people in a room, it still feels quite natural. You can sit, you can have a cup of coffee, but suddenly you're doing this on Zoom or some other online medium, and it feels artificial. But one of my jobs as a host is to make guests as comfortable as possible, because that really comes through in the conversation and in the voice. How do you do this online? How do you keep conversations spontaneous and vibrant? So that was a whole new challenge, and that was a trial by fire. They say, but Yuddha Kale Shastra Abhyasa, right? Learn while wanting to fight the war. It was that sort of mode in which we did it. That was the first thing that made it really challenging. The second thing was, like you said, the sheer diversity of programs that we've had. In the past, either I had co-hosts who brought in other competencies and, domain knowledge, or I was talking about things that I was still largely comfortable with. With BIC, what was wonderful was the sheer, we talked about everything from culture to history to sexuality to public policy to, military affairs and, stuff on the Ladakh border, everything in one show, in one umbrella. That is also the spirit of the Bangalore International Center, right? That to be able to capture all those kinds of conversations, discussions, performances under one roof, metaphorically and physically. So I think that was interesting. And so therefore, having to also work sometimes with, a lot of the times with guest hosts. So it's sometimes I'm anchoring a conversation, sometimes I'm enjoying being a fly on the wall in certain conversations, but still making sure that they go in a way that makes sense and sort of fits with the ethos of our podcast and of the center. So I think that made it, again, really challenging. And the third thing, which perhaps in some ways was more challenging than the rest, was doing this twice a week. I tell you, it's quite insane. and you talked about the number of live streams. That's 3 a week, 4 a week. It's a crazy number. And often, sometimes things happening in parallel. So all of this happening through this crazy year, I think many people had perhaps the luxury or the complaint that they didn't necessarily get to do much during the lockdown, and this year people got to take a step back and maybe study or learn. Here, I have been more busy since the lockdown, since the pandemic, than before. The year before that was very, very relaxed for me.
I have to say, you're not doing a very good job of selling this to me while handing it over.
Hey, you're already at the Bangalore International Center, so you know how this works.
While speaking about all these diverse programs, off the top of your head, can you tell us your top five episodes or top 5 guests?
So I don't know about top 5 because each episode was a very, very different journey. So what I'd like to say is there were some where I thoroughly enjoyed just being able to listen to that conversation live, right? And that's the experience that we want most of our listeners to have, right? You should be able to pick up a cup of coffee and feel like you're plugged in your headphones, but you're sitting in the same room listening to 2 or 3 people. So one, I had a great time just being able to listen in. I would just do the introduction and maybe along with Gaurav sort of help edit the episode. That experience to me was also very, very rich. One example was, I think Samita Arni and Devi Yashodharan had a fantastic episode on sex and its depiction in Indian epics. Even very recently, I think Sam came back on the show and we were talking about Taran Khan talking about walking through Kabul and experiences in the city. And Afghanistan is something that's fascinated me, and like more than geopolitics and all those highfalutin stuff, the idea of life in that city and how people there watch Chhota Bheem, and here we don't watch Chhota Bheem, right? So listening to those kinds of conversations I found particularly enriching. And I'd say in terms of my personal privilege, given my personal interests in, say, the sciences, especially the life sciences, I think being able to have Dr. Gagandeep Kang on the podcast not once but 3 times to talk about the science of the coronavirus and the vaccines, the drugs, the development, all of that. And even our first episode with Dr. Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, I think that was great for me. I'll tell you, I shamelessly used it. I'd record these conversations in English. I also run the Teleharte Kannada podcast in Kannada, and I could later be an active discussant with some of my co-hosts on that show, where at least half of what I was doing was translating what I learned in Kannada and trying to explain the same thing in a different language. So I would say those were really good. There's one other conversation that really comes to mind from a while ago, listening to Lieutenant General Prakash Menon talking to Admiral Arun Prakash about the Indian sort of defense and military reform, right? Where we've created a new chief of defense staff, and sort of listening to these two people who've been in the system for so long, who have an institutional memory of why certain decisions were taken or not taken over the last 15, 20 years. And that was just amazing to have the two of them talk to each other.
I wanted to ask you, as a podcaster, do you prefer watching a conversation, being able to see a speaker, or do you imbibe a conversation better if you're listening to it only? For example, if you were to come to the BIC auditorium or to any place for that matter, do you think you're more receptive to the audio format? Or because personally, I would say if I can't see somebody, being a mildly more visual person, I get a little bit disoriented sometimes.
So I would say for things that are, say, shorter than 10 minutes, right? Roughly, I prefer being able to watch someone. But if it's something longer, then sometimes the visual can be a distraction unless the visual is adding a lot to the story. So I'm talking about as a listener or a consumer of audios and videos, right? So I think with longer videos, the video really needs to bring something to the table. If it's a well-produced, say, think of something like The Daily Show or any of these things, there's a chyron or a chevron that like all the text that's running at the bottom, there's an image on the side, there's a break to a clip, there's all of that that's happening, which makes the video valuable, right? So when say there's some American politician saying something silly, I want to see that person's face when they're saying something silly or horrendous. But otherwise, I found that personally also why I've taken a little bit to the podcast medium is that I don't want to see that person's face who is speaking. I mean, I don't mean this in a bad way, but like I don't need to. In fact, many times, even on, say, before podcasting, on YouTube, say, you have somebody like Stephen Fry who's talking to somebody else about, I don't know, religion or freedom or books. I'd usually change my tabs. I'd have the video running in the background in a different tab, and I'd be typing out an email or doing some work or doing something else. So even videos, I think many of us, and I don't think I'm alone in this, many times if it's a conversational video, we often don't always keep watching the video through the length of it. So to me, the idea of a podcast and therefore listening to especially conversational podcasts is something that comes naturally, and it's a preference. But that's where I think now people are trying all kinds of things. Even at BIC, we've tried this, right? I mean, there are some discussions that are recorded live, but then there'll be an edited version which is audio only. So the idea is essentially about individual choice, right? If the information can be conveyed, let people consume it however they want to consume it. And I think podcast is this wonderful medium which allows you to listen while doing other things. The other thing I love about podcasting is that I'll tell you, podcasting versus live, I have a very strong preference. Because live, sometimes you feel like speed of talking is a conversational one. If I were to speak twice as fast, it would sound weird, right? If you were to ask your questions twice as fast, they'd sound very weird. But when I'm listening to a podcast, I'm listening to it at 2x. If I'm not doing anything else. Because then I'm like just waiting for the pauses, my mind drifts off because, conversation is going at a conversation pace, not at a superhuman pace that can occupy my ears or mind completely. So that is also an element of choice that I really like. Even YouTube allows you to, especially with lectures, right? If you're listening to an online lecture, I think listening to it at 1x is a big waste of your time. You can listen to it at 1.5 or 2 and then pause it and take notes when you want to. You can change that. So to me, it's all about choice. And I've really found that audio enables a lot of choice.
That's a great note about speed.
1.5 hour lecture, 45 minutes, you're done. And you would have gotten the same amount of yarn from it anyway.
So that's note for our listeners. You can hear us at chipmunk voice pace.
Hey, and the good players don't make your voice chipmunk. They'll just speed it up, but you don't sound like a chipmunk.
Oh, that's good to hear as well.
Yeah, so right now, any of our listeners, if you're on Spotify or pretty much any platform, just go change the speed if you've never done that before. Even if you're on YouTube, go change the speed right now. And the tonality of my voice won't change. Just the tempo of my voice will change. So you can try it out right now.
Okay, while they try that, you do a certain amount of research for every podcast that host. For those that you may not be hosting, for those that you are a fly on the wall, you may not be doing that much.
I at least want to know who and what I'm recording, right?
So have there been instances where you like prepared for like a board exam for a podcast and then you ended up recording a podcast that like was completely a surprise to you?
You know, I mean, I've gotten better over this. There are some stories from my early days of podcasting before BIC, which were like, oh my God, I feel so thoroughly underprepared, even though I spent 4 hours. We're talking about something else, and I don't know how to control this conversation where, you know, you want a guest to be speaking freely, but you still want to be able to talk about some of the things that are at least important. So I think most of the horror stories come well before a BIC. But in terms of genuine surprise in sort of having a conversation unfold and, you know, unlock things, to me, the best example is the conversation that I got to have with Joseph Thomas, who's a retired Indian Air Force pilot who used to fly over the India-China border and map the border aerially back in the 70s or so. And he, in fact, got his start in the 62 war with China. And so being able to listen to him and have that conversation evolve and like being able to ask him questions about what happened, what were your flying sorties like, and what did you try and do, and to learn that actually India was far superior to China till almost the 80s, or if not a little more, in the knowledge of how the border areas were. Today, it's unthinkable, right? Everybody has satellites, and of course, China has a lot of money that they're spending on a lot of things. So you would assume that there's at least parity, if not advantage, to the Chinese side. But to think that that's where we were, that's something that was learned sort of half through the course of the conversation itself. And this was one unique instance which was like really memorable. But even otherwise, what I've learned over time is not to over prepare and over script even the questions of a podcast, because you do want serendipity to take you somewhere. Suddenly a guest will remember an anecdote or a tangent which becomes more important or as important as the rest of it, or it might become the most engaging part of it. And the guest might not have planned this either, right? So typically, you figure out a few broad questions that you want to ask your guests. You give people a sense of what to expect when they come on the show, what they're thinking of, especially when we are also thinking of time. But beyond that, allow the conversation to just go where it needs to.
Do you have any pet peeves when it comes to recording as a podcaster, like when you have to marshal all these speakers in, and are there things that really, really annoy you?
I mean, trying to deal with tech this last year was a challenge. I mean, imagine a way in which, I'm sure you would have faced this with the live recordings as well, but imagine a failure. It would have happened at some point, right? And then you have to figure out on the fly how you salvage this, how do you proceed. We are supposedly in the 21st century. Even now our internet connections are terrible and they drop out at any given time. There'll be some road construction that happens, and some 1 hour before you're scheduled a recording, somebody yanks the physical sort of internet cables outside the house. I live in a place where randomly somebody decides to start drilling and doing some construction work at a time that I don't expect. So there are those kinds of challenges which sometimes, especially if they happen in the middle of a recording, really throw you off. And sometimes it's easier as a guest because you're talking about stuff that you know well, right? But you're a host. You're listening to what that person's saying. You're listening intently so that you don't just rattle off your next question, but are able to engage. And then suddenly you have this odd distraction that comes through, or the biggest faux pas when I forget to turn off the sounds on my own phone. Not when guests forget to turn off their phone. That's fine. I mean, that's just funny, and like sometimes the guests are embarrassed, but like, you know, it's all right. I mean, they can restate it. But if I'm the host and I have my phone turned on, and it's happened, I think, a couple of times on our recording, I had to apologize and then, you know, redo. I think that's a big pet peeve. Apart from that, I would say I have an odd relationship with keeping the camera on versus off. Sometimes it's better because you can at least visually see each other and pick up cues, right, when you're conversing. Some other times it's also liberating because you just have your headphones on. You can be drinking water. I have a cat at home. If she's doing something, I can pet her while I don't have to keep staring into camera, because people might think that I'm distracted because I'm not looking straight ahead, whereas I am intently listening to what's happening.
There is a debate when it comes to podcasts on having a certain kind of voice that is required to run a podcast. Voice, I mean in terms of the actual voice of the person running it, and also the voice of the show, and the tonality and a uniformity to the purpose of the show. What do you have to say about that?
One, on the voice, yes, I've heard so many of these comments over the years. Oh, you know, you have a radio jockey's voice. Oh my God, the quality of your voice is amazing. And you know, you can also have these conversations about singers, right? You can say that, oh my God, you know, Beyonce or Adele has this amazing voice, and some other artist may not have that kind of a range in their voice. But even with music, we've seen that people with frankly not much vocal range have become amazing musicians. Bob Dylan has a horrible voice. I mean, today if you hear him sing, you can't understand 5 words in a row, but you have many musicians who are not necessarily having the greatest voice. I think with podcasting, to me, with the voice, the most important thing is authenticity. Say as a host, I'm either not prepared, or if I am talking about something that I have absolutely no idea about, then that comes through very easily. The same with a guest, or same with whoever is in a podcast conversation. So to me, authenticity in a voice and people speaking naturally means a lot more than them having the perfect voice, which is not nasal. If it's a male voice, that it's deep enough. If, you know, the voice should not be too shrill, or I think that's bunkum. I profoundly disagree with that sentiment. Maybe that's a necessity if you're an RJ where you're trying to grab onto every second of somebody's interest. And an RJ speaks for 8 minutes out of a full hour. Rest of it is advertising and music, right? I mean, today in India. So that's a different ballgame. But otherwise, I think far more than the tone, I think maybe as a host, or maybe all of us who want to speak, we want to reduce our vocal tics. So I shouldn't say right too often, or like too often, or ums and ahs too often. That apart, the idea is having a natural, good conversation. And, you know, the more you interfere with that, the more you take away from the quality of a podcast. So that's on the voice part. On the tone of a podcast, yes, I think there has to be some unifying idea. That unifying idea does not mean that there shouldn't be diversity. For example, the Bangalore International Center, incredibly diverse in its programming, and that's a feature and not a bug, and that's stated up front, and that's perfectly fine. You can have some shows which are only 3 people in every show. Right? It's like a bunch of friends or a bunch of colleagues who talk it out. And some which are sort of guest-based, some which are very produced. To me, it's a medium. It's like saying, is there a particular way in which people should write a written piece, right? No, I mean, there's everything. I think it should be good to have your organizing principles. Beyond that, you determine what your principles are.
So clearly, there's a lot of work that has gone into putting these podcasts together. Can you walk us through the process of putting a certain episode together from scratch up to the point that a listener can tune in?
With BIC Talks, the process is, I think I want people to appreciate just how many people and how many steps are involved from an idea to an actual episode that comes out. And what I'm doing is just one part in it. It's perhaps the most visible part in it, apart from the guest. But it typically starts from figuring out, okay, what do you want to record on and who do you want to record with, right? Sometimes you might have the best idea on this is the topic, nobody is talking about it. First tensions happen in Ladakh. You want to be first on scene and get a podcast out. But then you have to figure out, okay, what if everything changes in a week? Will my podcast make even sense? Because I might take a week to record and put it out, right? And the whole situation might change. Who do I get? Right? Or sometimes you have a great guest, but then you're at a loss for what is the best topic. I mean, there is somebody great who is giving you time, right? I mean, there's somebody like Joseph Thomas who's giving you time. There's somebody like Admiral Arun Prakash. There's somebody really wonderful who's giving you time. How do you best make use of it? Because we are just one medium, good people are there across media, across different platforms. That work has been done largely by Ravi, Raghu, you getting guests and topics, and I played somewhat of a role in that occasionally. But that's just figuring out that, yes, let's record a topic with a person, right?
You're being too humble, Pawan.
No. I mean, if I had to also solicit all the guests in this, I mean, I don't think the podcast would have happened. But once that happens, then the question is, okay, how do we fine tune this topic, right? How do we figure out what are the broad things that we want to cover? And then how do we translate those broad things into what I call anchor questions or anchor points, right? So you want to anchor the discussion to a few things in the ground and then let things flow thereafter. And then, scheduling, all of that, which is again, not trivial, right? I mean, you want to schedule it. And during the lockdown, we also had to schedule it where we were happy in that we didn't have to worry about people. When will they be in Bangalore? When will they have a free hour where they can come to the center or the studio? But at the same time, can you do it at a time where outside noise is minimal? Where do you record? What kind of equipment do you use? So I think that was an important part. And over here with how we record, how we get a good quality recording is where it was not just me, but Gaurav Krishna, who's even now monitoring our conversation on his studio headphones, where we came in and sort of needed to get audio that is good, right? Because you might have seen this often even with, say, a live stream. Because people are attending it live and we have become used to the world of Zoom today, we can actually be quite forgiving even if, one word is lost. And in context, we get it. We're listening to it live. All that context is stripped away when you're listening to a recorded podcast whenever, right? We might have released an episode. Our first episode with Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw might be listened to 6 months later, so you don't know the context. Somebody might be listening to it before they go to sleep or while they're cooking. You have no idea about how people are tuning in versus a live show where that by and large they're sitting in front of their phones or their computers tuning in. So that was an important part that we had to figure out quite a bit. And then once you've done the recording and gotten it at decent sound quality, how do you edit it, right? And again, Saravana and Gaurav at BIC have edited all of our episodes so far, and I come in basically with a bit of content edits here and there where we think that this conversation has gone on for 50 minutes, but we think we can afford to lose this 1 minute here and there to make sure that we get a tight 40-minute episode. And the idea here was to have still a light touch. It's like copy editing a piece that goes into a newspaper, right? Not doing surgery on it, because then it's no longer a conversation, it's something else. So that was a part, and then you're okay with it, and then you get it out, and by the time you're dead tired, and then you have to share it on social media and then get people to listen to it. So that's how that happens twice a week. So welcome.
So considering that there's so much of work that goes into producing a podcast, BIC Talks is an anomaly, would you say, that it is twice a week, or what is the general frequency?
I would say many podcasts are either weekly or some are fortnightly, or some others might be weekly but seasonal. They'll say we'll do 10 episodes week on week, but then we'll take a break for 6 months or for a year. There are trade-offs with each of those things because podcasting is still a new medium and a growing medium in the country. I think the likes of having apps like Spotify, Saavn, JioSaavn, Gaana and others, which are primarily music apps, but which also have podcasts, have introduced a lot of new Indians into podcasts, right? Because that was the thing that happened in the US over a decade ago, where I don't remember if it was iPhone 3 or iPhone 4 that came pre-installed with a podcast app. So people realized that it was a default thing. Even 2 years ago, I had to tell someone to go listen to my podcast. I could give them a web link, but that doesn't really make sense. You can play it on the web and listen to it on your phone, but I have to give them like a 6-step instruction process. Go download X app, then go to app, sign in, and then hunt for my show, and then subscribe, and then find the right episode, download it, and then listen to it, right? So it's this instruction manual that you have to give with each episode. Thankfully, that has changed. So yes, even now, 2 a week is, I think, more ambitious than most podcasts out there. Many others who do frequency do a daily show. So 2 a week is still an outlier, but a good outlier, I think. I don't think anyone else has managed that pace for that long.
It's amazing, given the amount of work that goes into creating a podcast, the sheer number of podcasts that exists now. And of course, each day, more and more podcasters are entering our listening fields. So would you first, if somebody wanted to start a podcast, would you recommend that they start one or not? And if yes, then a few sort of like gems of wisdom that you would give them.
First thing, I would say, yes, there are a lot of podcasts out there, but there are lots of YouTubers out there, and there are a lot of YouTube video channels out there. So, and the number of YouTube channels are probably much higher in number, and there are more out there, right? So in that sense, yes, there are a lot, but again, they're not enough, right? For example, out of India, there are a few, but like you actually pick a specific topic, for example, you may not be able to find anything. Or you might not be able to find anything dedicated. You go beyond English and Indian languages, there are only a handful, discount Hindi and maybe one other language. So in that sense, the opportunity is still wide. I think the demand might be latent for listening because it's a habit that needs to be created, right? Unlike the one big difference, I think, between podcasts and say YouTube videos right now is that because YouTube is a platform, you don't necessarily go subscribe to a channel. Because you watched a bunch of videos and you like, say, videos on gardening or on self-care or on whatever. If you watched a few videos, YouTube suggests other videos, they have a good algorithm, so you can discover new content easily. Podcast, that discovery process is still a little slow, right? So discovery is hard. Once you've discovered it, then you've subscribed, then you can, follow the episodes a lot more often. That's just one thing where the medium is at. So in terms of somebody getting in, yes, I think we need a lot more podcasters talking about various things. About any individual or an organization getting in, know that this is something, once you start, you should have committed mentally to doing this for a while. I mean, what I loved about working with BIC and starting this was, I think we had a commitment that at least for a year, we're going to do this. And then we'll see, right? And we've done it for a year, and you're now taking over. BIC also wants to continue this, right? It's not like we're like, okay, we are done and we want to shut shop. And that's, I think, an important commitment. It's very different from, say, starting other things. You need to know that you want to be in this for a year or two, because you might see true reach and true outcomes that you want over time, whether you're an organization or an individual. You can always decide, 3 years and even then only my friends are listening to it, then okay, maybe, you can take a call. But the good thing is that it's like what blogging was, I think, about 15 years ago or so. You start, and especially if you're an individual, you might start bad. I have started blogs which I will never share in public anymore, where the first few posts were terrible. But eventually they became half decent at least, and then I could at least move on to the next thing, which was a little better. So in that sense, starting and being able to learn episode on episode is a great thing. So you should start, but you should know that it involves work. It's not just coming, sitting in front of a mic, recording for half an hour, walking away. If you're not doing a conversation but a scripted show, you need to script it. And that's like 150, 180 words a minute for how many minutes that you want to talk. And that script needs to make sense no matter what the language. If it's conversation, you need to do the research, you need to do the homework, and that lack of homework comes through. So I think there is the risk of having a mediocre show that's out there, both for an individual and for an organization. An individual is most likely spending time, right? And now there are even free hosting platforms and so on. An organization is committing resources, right? I think they have to think that part through. But I think the depth of engagement you can get from a podcast is still very, very unique. Like YouTube videos, you look at the most consumed YouTube or Facebook videos, they're 3 minutes long, maximum 6 or 10 minutes long. So if you want people to sort of listen to a 40-minute conversation, I mean, they're investing that kind of time. And this is one medium where that investment is possible. I mean, I've seen it happen and it's really rewarding. So that's what I'd say. I mean, you should be in it for the long haul. You should not be looking to make money from it anytime soon. Even if you take YouTube, the fraction of YouTubers who make money and are able to quit their full-time jobs to do YouTube, a handful. But many others who do it because they're passionate. So it's still passion-driven. It's still interest-driven. You need stamina. And you should be ready to work. So definitely, but be prepared.
The point about having a deeper, richer engagement when it comes to podcast, we at BIC actually have data to sort of support it in some way, because we see that our podcasts have much more listens, much more numbers when compared to any of our video outputs, video events. So clearly, as Ravi puts it, audio is the future. What kind of innovations do you see as we go forward in podcasting?
So I fully agree with Ravi when he says audio is the future, but sometimes that is interpreted as, audio is the future, but print is dead, or audio is the future, but video is dead. I fundamentally disagree. I think we know that print has a future, we know that video has a future, but audio is also a big part of that future. A statistic that I'd heard from other podcasters that I've worked with was that apparently world over, people have a natural tendency when they want to listen to audio that they sort of broadly drift 70-30 between music and talk. And in the US, you have a long tradition of talk radio and things like that. In India, we haven't because of our history. And even now, the way FM radio, licenses and all are given, they're very, very expensive. So if you want to run them, you have to play popular music a lot of the time. This conversation, if it's aired on a FM city station, will be very, very bad for that station. So audio is definitely a big part of our future. But I think the way already in the lockdown and after the lockdown, we have seen changes to the norm in which, by which podcasts have even been consumed, regular podcasts, right? People initially thought, this is largely a commute thing. Even the Americans drive cars for like hours on end, so they'll have their radio on, they'll listen. And that's still a draw. That's how you enter the world of listening to talk radio or podcasts. But that's not the end. I've now heard stories of people listening to podcasts before they turn in. Many who do dedicated listening at high speeds, not just listening while doing other chores, listening while running. These are things that we've been discovering just over the last few years. And I think that can evolve in all kinds of ways. If more smart devices enter our homes, maybe people won't even listen to your full show. But if you have answered one particular question in that episode, maybe just that audio clip of 2 minutes might get consumed in a different way 5 years from now, or even 3 years from now. So how that listening will happen is very different. I've heard stories of people who are listening to certain podcasts, having weekly discussions on their private family or friends WhatsApp groups about the episode. So some of the conversations that are happening because of this are happening in a way that are not visible to even the podcast creator or any of us. But they're happening, right? So I had heard one story of a Hindi podcast, which was on, I think, Ambedkar or something, where there was a book club in Lucknow, which again decided to listen to the show as a club together in person and then have a discussion, right? So I think we should be open to the idea that people will listen and watch however they want. You should not try to control for that. You should design such that people can have whatever freedoms. So I think, especially we are having this conversation in English, but especially as we go beyond English as well, and as more people come into English, I think the future is bright.
So here's to the future.
Yes. And all the best, Lekha. I think you'll have a fun time. And I think there's the old Chinese curse, right? May you live in interesting times. It will certainly be an interesting time, but I hope that it'll also be fun and enriching, as it certainly was for me.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the last 101 episodes.
My pleasure and my privilege, and I'll still be here in some form or the other at the Bangalore International Center.
Of course, we can't do without you, Pawan. And here's me. My name is Lekha, and I have had the pleasure of speaking with the host of this podcast, an award-winning podcaster, public policy researcher, one of 40 under 40 positively influential, socially responsible social media superstars, and a proud and doting cat parent. Pawan Srinath, thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of BIC Talks. This podcast can be accessed on our website, bangaloreinternationalcenter.org, as well as on any of your favorite podcast platforms. Tune in for new episodes every week, and do subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages to stay informed on our latest updates.